Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Tom Asacker joining us. Tom, welcome.
Hey, Michael, great to be here.
So for those who don't know you, just take a moment, Tom, and explain what you do.
What do? I do a lot of different things. I'm currently an author, an independent brand strategy advisor. I'm working on a philosophy of life. That's been my task for the last 4.5 years, which I hope to launch in January. I stay pretty busy.
Certainly sounds like you do. And the philosophy angle sounds interesting. So we'll see if we have some time to get into that. But I know that many of our listeners who are tuning in right now are going to be very interested to learn from your experience. And you have quite the background, a real list of accomplishments. And I think there's a lot that everyone here can benefit from. So let's get right to it. I mean, I think it would be great for us to start at the beginning. Like, what was your path to becoming a consultant and coach? And did you find it to be a hard transition to make?
Yeah. Okay. So my path is, I left university. I wanted to be an artist, but I ended up switching to economics because my dad couldn't figure out how being a painter was going to help me pay my college bills. And I left there, got a job with GE, was head of strategic planning at one of their divisions. We did a buyout, an LBO of that business unit from GE when Jack Welch came in, grew that for 4 or 5 years, had a vision collision with my partners. I left there and started a medical device company, grew that for 4.5 years, maybe pretty fast rate, very rapid rate. Again, another vision collision with my partners. And at that point, that's when I sat down, wrote a book, and started consulting. So that was probably 18, 19 years ago is when I first hung my shingle. And that's what I've been doing and writing books and giving speeches since then.
All right. Yeah. I want to come back to that kind of tipping point or the transition point when you got into consulting, but something just kind of piqued my interest, which is that you've worked with multiple partners in different businesses and inevitably ran into some challenges in those relationships. In your experience, I mean, do you feel that for a consultant, for a coach, for someone going into the business and professional services, having a partner is a good thing, or do you think that it's something that people should avoid?
Well, you see, in the consulting and coaching business, unless you're going to scale it by hiring hundreds of employees, there really isn't this fear that the marketplace grabs this idea that you have and you start printing cash. That's what happened with the 2 businesses that I was in. So people started to lose their vision of why we were in business in the first place, and their focus was all on the wealth that was being accumulated. And so rather than reinvesting that into the business, they wanted to start drawing it out. That was the nature of why these investors who own the majority share, why they were doing what they were doing. So I guess if you're going to partner with someone to do consulting and coaching, and they don't love what they're doing, they don't enjoy getting up every day and solving hard problems and helping clients succeed, then I would not get into business with them because they have some other intention, and it probably revolves around money. Not that money isn't something that you need to do to keep going, but it shouldn't be the thing that gets you up in the morning.
So everyone's going to have to pardon me for a moment because I might go off on a bit of a tangent here, but I promise you I will come back to really extract as much value as I can from Tom in this conversation. But you're reminding me, Tom, I just was watching an interview with Chip Wilson, the founder of Lululemon, a couple of days ago, where whether you like Lululemon or not, and you wear the whole yoga pants and all that, he talked about his own experience of growing that business. And then when he kind of stepped back from it, had other people come in and take over who were much more focused on delivering for Wall Street and focus on the fiscal side of the business and not so much around innovation and ideas. That's really when the company started to get in trouble. And it wasn't until they were able to kind of retake some of that things turned around for them. But I think you're making a really interesting point that even for the independent solo consultant, or if you're running a small firm, many times we're focused on the numbers, on the metrics, because that's a way for us to kind of make growth tangible. But if we do that and only focus on that, and we kind of start to, or we forget to continue honing our own craft and looking at ways that we can innovate and deliver more value for our clients, I've seen many people get in trouble doing that. So what's your perspective? I mean, your own experience around that whole side of innovation and wealth creation.
I've been through the gamut as well. To me, it's like sport, right? You don't get up in the morning and play sports and every couple seconds look at the score, because the score isn't the reason you're out there playing sports in the first place. It's because of the love of the game. The minute you don't love the game anymore is when you should get out of the game, right? So people who are looking at the score continuously to see how they're doing, instead of looking at the process, the game, the strategy, the growth, everything that they're trying to do to not only improve other people's lives, but just turn themselves on. So if you don't have that passion in you to do that, go do something else. I mean, the numbers should be an indication of how well you're doing the process and enjoying the process and pouring yourself into the process. You shouldn't be working for numbers, or you're going to wake up someday and say, what the hell happened in the last 30 years?
Yeah, well said. I mean, I've mentioned this before, and I'm certainly not the person who first said this. You never run into someone kind of on their last breath on their deathbed saying, oh, I wish I had more money, right? It's all about, I wish I spent more time with this loved one, or did this thing that I really wanted to do but never did because there was fear, or someone told me that I couldn't or shouldn't do it. So your message is a really important one. Let's go back now to you becoming a consultant. You were making this transition, you're running these different businesses. How did you actually go about getting your first client?
Oh man, that's a good question, because what happened is I ended up quitting and leaving the medical device company. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was sitting at my kitchen table like at 11 o'clock in the morning, staring into a bowl of cereal. And I looked at my daughter to the left, and she was eating some cereal, and she was looking at a spoon, and she was turning it over and over, looking at it, and her eyebrows were raising. And I looked at her and I said, what are you doing with that spoon, Andrea? And she goes, Daddy, how come if I look at the spoon this way, I'm right side up, but if I flip it over, I'm upside down? And all I knew, and it almost spilled right out of my mouth, were the words concave and convex. And then I realized I don't really know why the image is flipping upside down and right side up. And I'll tell you, Michael, at that point, it was a crazy, light bulb moment. I said to myself, that's very interesting. Most business people don't know why what they do works, but they know a lot of words picked up every place. So I wrote a little book about a business guy who's lost his way in his work and lost his passion, and serendipitously meets this little girl, and through her eyes rediscovers his creativity and passion. And I self-published it back in the day before the internet. So I spent a lot of money just sending books out there, and it took off. It was a little book called Sandbox Wisdom. It took off, and I started getting phone calls from all over the place to come and give talks and consult. And so I didn't really go out and try to find clients. They started coming to me.
Right. But you definitely made a very clear or had a clear intention of who you were sending this book to. So how did you choose who to actually send this book to, and share with us, who did you actually send it to?
God, who did I send it to? What I would do is I would read things. If I read something, I sent it to a lot, like most of the CEOs, where I would read their philosophies and try to understand their intentions and their values and their culture. And if I read something somewhere, I said, that's the guy. And I put the thing in an envelope and sent it out. So I was looking for people that had a shared sense of what the world was about and how they viewed it and how they approached it. And anytime I saw that anywhere, I just put an address on an envelope, and I put a little note in there with a book, and I mailed it.
What do the notes say? I'm very interested to know what the angle was, or how you introduced yourself and the book to these people.
They were all very specific notes. So if I saw something from the CEO of FedEx at the time that he wrote somebody interviewed him and it was in Forbes, and I read the magazine, I read the article. then I would pull out something that he said. And I said, you know what? I believe exactly the same thing. I loved reading that in that article. I don't often read that. Here's something that I believe. I hope you find time to read it. I hope you enjoy it. And if I can ever help you in any way, please just let me know. And that's it. I put my business card in it and off it went. And as soon as it went off, it was like a message in a bottle in the ocean. I was done. No follow-ups, no worries. If they connect with it, they connect with it. If they don't, they don't. And on we go to another bottle.
So what did that actually look like? I mean, paint the picture for us so we can kind of get a little more detail and specifics around this. Roughly how many do you think that you sent out, and how many inquiries or calls did you receive from sending those out?
Oh, hundreds, if not over 1,000 books. These were hardcover. And I didn't track it. I didn't keep like a database or anything.
Oh, how much business do you think that generated for you in the first few years, or whatever the time span was?
Thousands of dollars.
So it was definitely ROI positive for you.
Oh yeah, no, everything just blew up. It blew up. I was getting called from governments to come and give talks at various governments about innovation and success. It just took on a life of its own. And it wasn't because I had some kind of objective and strategy. It was because I was trying to connect with people that felt what I felt and desired what I desired in life and in world and in business. And I just sent something out that touched them in a certain way.
Looking back, if you were to do that again, or let's say you were counseling someone who was about to do something along those lines, do you think not doing follow-up and having the mindset of just put it out there and see what happens is the right mindset? Or do you think that someone should enter into that type of activity with a lot more kind of strategy and a clear plan to follow up in mind?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you know what? I've launched things subsequent to that, and I've continued with that particular counterintuitive strategy, which is I'm like Johnny Appleseed. I'm going to go as far and wide as I can and spread as many seeds as I can. And if those seeds start sprouting and I get an indication, I'll come water it and prune it and take care of it. But I'm not going to try to connect with somebody who I don't get an initial connection from, because I find that just not only does it waste my time, but it starts making me doubt myself. You know, why am I calling this guy over and over again and I'm not getting any clear response?
So I think these are really great ideas and experiences that you're sharing. You've now kind of painted the picture of how you've got those first few clients. But what about today? Your business is much more developed today, many years later on. Talk us through, in terms of your marketing and how you continue to get clients for your business, what is working best for you right now?
Well, it came full circle. I'm doing a lot of consulting work through referrals and all. And I started to become frustrated with what I was seeing in the world of business and work, because people didn't really understand how to influence other people. And that's what branding is really about, is the art of influence and value creation. But people didn't really understand it. They were just winging it. And I'm out giving talks, I'm consulting, and it just wasn't working. And I could see it. I could see that my clients weren't really adopting the philosophies that I was teaching. I got frustrated. So I sat back down and I wrote a book about how this all works called
Are you referring to the Business of Belief?
Yeah, the Business of Belief. I wrote this little book. Same thing. I've had publishers before, but on this one, I didn't. I just wanted to get it out there. So I self-published it. And Michael, the same thing happened. It blew up. I got calls. I think I'm published in 12 countries, self-published. Contracts came directly to me from people who saw this on Amazon. And again, here comes the phone. Start ringing again. Help us.
Did you take the same approach, Tom? Do you just start sending this new book, The Business of Belief, to anyone that you thought could be an ideal client? Or
not a client? No. See, that's the good news. I never look at, wow, that looks like a potential client. I would just read something somewhere. I read something in Inc. magazine that some guy wrote, and I went, wow, that's amazing. And I sent him the book. The next thing he says, I'd like to review this on Inc. And Inc. picked it as like the #1 inspirational big business book of the year. because this guy decided he wanted to write about it. So I'm a big believer in just spreading it as wide as possible, because you don't know who knows any. If you believe in this 6 degrees of separation thing, you don't know who knows someone. Someone reads the book and then they're having a glass of wine with the CEO of this company and he's complaining about something. And the guy says, have you read this book? And he hands him the book, or he says, go get it.
Yeah.
So
this really reminds me of one of my early mentors when I was building business in Japan. His name was Moriya. He was a managing director for a large Japanese advertising agency. And he took a very similar approach, not by sending books, because he has not written a book from what I know, but he would be reading the newspaper every single day. He'd read multiple newspapers. Probably the most common was like the Nikkei Shimbun, the Nikkei newspaper. And he would cut out articles and he'd fax them over to clients, or he'd bring them to meetings. His whole focus was just on value. And he wasn't saying, hey, read this article because you should hire us to do this work for you. It was just like, hey, thought you might find this interesting.
Business is about creating value for other people. Mm-hmm. It's a dance and an exchange of value. I got up this morning, I think it was like 5 o'clock, and I'm having a cup of coffee, and I saw an article, copywriting article on Twitter. I know a guy that's a copywriter that's struggling to scale his business. And I sat down and I went through Twitter, found his address, sent him a direct message and said, here's an article for you. And 15 minutes later, I got a thank you so much. That's it. It's instead of thinking about yourself all day long and what you need and what, how do I get ahead? Start thinking about everyone out there that's struggling, because in this chaotic marketplace, everyone is struggling to make sense and to keep moving forward. If you have any insights at all that you can share with people, they look at you differently. They look at you as a source of value. And that's what a strategic consultant is a source of value.
So let me play the devil's advocate for a moment, because it sounds like what you're espousing here is really provide value to as many people as you can. Always be thinking about others. Don't think so much about yourself. Don't strategically plan out how you're going to enter a market or connect with an ideal client. Am I misunderstanding that? Am I kind of misconstruing it? I just want to be clear on what you're saying, because I want to play the devil's advocate and say, well, if you're always focusing on other people and providing value to others and not thinking as much about yourself or strategic planning for your own business, then how can you actually grow your business?
No, I hear you. It's funny because the ideal clients, right? So when you say think about the ideal clients, you can't really plan for the ideal client. What makes a great consultant? You know this. A great consultant is made by having a great client. Without a great client, you're not a great consultant, because all your business typically comes from referrals anyway. Mm-hmm. So what happens is when you start getting inquiries because people see the work you do or the value you provide, do your homework, especially around understanding that client, their culture, their desires and beliefs, the unique value they provide, and be picky, really picky. Look at the client and say, no, I don't think this is going to be it doesn't matter about the money. That doesn't matter. It's, can you create successful clients? If you can create successful clients, other clients come your way. But if you go into something and you say, well, I can get this client, this is my potential best type of client, let me go get that, let me focus. You don't even know if that client is a client that will dance with you in a way that will make the relationship something that's beneficial for both of you. How do you know that? You don't know the people. You're probably reading their financials or something. You've got to sit, talk to the person that's going to hire you, talk to the CEO. What do they think they know? What do they really need? What are they struggling with? How arrogant are they? Do they think they know more about what you do than what you think? And then find the ideal client through that process. Help them. And I guarantee you, if you help them achieve what they're looking for in the marketplace, they tell everyone they know about the consultant that helped them.
Yeah, really great perspectives here, Tom. Let's talk about your book for a moment. So The Business of Belief. I mean, a lot of your work these days focuses on that. What is that? What does that actually look like? Can you offer a tangible example of this?
Well, see, I don't think people understand how, okay, so let me back up a little bit. This is what people know. They know that everyone's overwhelmed with choice. They know that. in every category. They know that people are easily distracted and highly skeptical. They know that. So they have to create, in order to motivate behavior change in an age of abundance, then you have to figure out how you're going to strategically and creatively appeal to how people's minds work. But they don't have one mind. People have three minds. They have the feeling mind, and that rapid, instinctive is driven by their perceptions and their intuition, right? Something they see, something they read. Mm-hmm. People behave. They don't read something and say, let me go investigate the hell out of that. That's just not what they do. They get this feeling of knowing something. So all of that feeling mind does is screens out for the thinking mind anything that's not important to them. They say, that's not important. I don't believe that. Off to this one. So they're looking to be stimulated and protected. And once it moves now to the thinking mind, okay, now you got this biased, lazy, highly skeptical mind, which is interested in itself. It wants to feel good about its decisions and associations. It's looking for relevance and inconsistencies. It wants to be right. So you have to put out information, imagery, everything that appeals to those two minds, because the final mind, which is the believing mind, is really strange. Like, why do people believe what they... I know that you talk to people who believe things and you walk away and you went, how does this guy believe that? Because it's a mixture of their personal feeling and thinking mind. It wants to identify with something or someone. And it understands life by creating cause and effect stories, which, by the way, are all bullshit. They're made up. But that's what we do. We create this, cause and effect. This happened, therefore that happened. No. What about all the random stuff that happened in between? Nobody ever talks about that. So if you understand how this works, that it always starts with the feeling mind, which is driven by people's motivations, then it moves over to this rationalizing thinking mind. Then you can sit down and say, okay, are we appealing to the marketplace in the right way?
So Tom, let me just jump in for a moment, because I really want to make sure that we can add some context and present this in a very clear and digestible manner for the consultants listening to this right now.
Sure.
So just imagine, you're a consultant yourself, you're a coach, you speak as well. But for the consultants listening to this right now, how can they apply maybe some of the best practices of really what you espouse around the business of belief? Like, what would be a tangible example or tangible kind of point that we could use to illustrate what the business of belief is all about?
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months. So don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Look, the most important insight that I can give is that if you're not succeeding as a consultant, you're not tapping into the desires of the clients. Now, those desires, whatever they are, and their perceptions are what are driving their choices. You have to look at them and say, okay, hold on a minute. I'll give you a perfect example. Look, when I first wrote my book back in, like I said, that I think, turn of the century.
Yeah.
There were a handful of other people that were writing popular business books. And we got all the speeches. We got them all. Because when people were looking for speakers, they were looking for validation that they had experts. So they said, well, who are the experts? Well, they must be the people who have published books.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of a sudden, self-publishing and Amazon and all that comes up. Now everyone has written a book. Everyone. So now you don't look anymore and say, I need validation because, well, of course, if I'm going to hire somebody, they've written a book. So now instead of being the branding expert, let's say that you run an organization that's affiliated with financial services or banking, and you say, oh, I want a banking expert, banking branding expert. Do you see what happens? Is you start narrowing in on your identity. And you say, okay, I want the expert that does X. Instead of an IT expert, I want an IT expert that works with financial services firms.
So I think to clarify what you're saying here, Tom, is the importance of specialization. The market is becoming more and more complicated. There's more options and choices than ever before. There's more people calling themselves consultants. And so in order to really stand out from the crowd, even though at times it may seem and feel like people might lose opportunities by going more and more narrow, in fact, in your experience, the more narrow you go, the more relevant you become, the more aligned your messaging is then with those that you want to serve and add value for. That's really what helps people to, would you say, believe more that you are someone that can truly add value?
Yeah. And look, the interesting part is I'm not saying necessarily to go narrow. What I'm saying is that people, when they start looking for someone to help them, in the past, they looked broadly because that's how the market was it was arranged like that. Oh, here's a brand consultant. Here's a financial consultant. Here's a this. But now, because people can do it now, can establish authority in these very small niches, that's what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you are that narrowness has to be industry, right? Maybe you say, no, I'm going to be a consultant who leads with values. And it doesn't matter that I'm going to do this industry or that industry or that industry. I'm looking for the people, the clients out there who also lead with their values or their purpose.
And I think that's actually your own experience, right? In terms of identifying people that you wanted to connect with and who you were sending your book to. You weren't targeting one specific industry, but rather someone who you felt you would have alignment with, and that's who you reached out to. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, no. If you look at my clients, it's all over the place. I have advised industry, technology, media, financial services, education and publishing, consumer products, medical devices, telecommunications, software services. It doesn't matter. It's the people who have the same way of looking at the world as me. Looking, right? But if you're an IT consultant, now you have to make a decision. You have to ask yourself, who do I connect with in a really authentic, powerful, visceral way? Do I connect with the small business owner? Do I connect with the entrepreneur? Do I connect with the value-driven CEO? Who I share the same types of perspective of the world with. That's how you narrow your focus.
Yeah. So speaking of some of the clients that you've served in multiple different industries, one thing that stood out to me when I was looking at your website, Tom, is the testimonials that you have. I mean, you have testimonials from some very established organizations and companies that you've given presentations for and keynotes and so forth. Many of them state how engaging you are as a speaker. And I think a theme that continues to come up in many of the interviews that I do is that speaking is certainly, as well as writing, but speaking is a great way to get in front of more ideal clients, to generate business, right? To create a pipeline, to create more opportunities. And so I'm very interested in your approach to speaking. If you had to kind of hone in on one thing or maybe a couple of things that you do or that you have found to work exceptionally well that really helps you to get the audience more engaged and that creates the kind of testimonials that you now have received on your website, what would you say that one or two things are?
Whoa. Okay. So there's two parts to that question. One is, does speaking bring you the types of consulting clients that you're looking for? That's one question, because I'm not so sure I believe that, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the second thing is then how do you engage an audience if you're up in front of them?
Yeah, actually, the first one wasn't even, you're bringing that first one up. That's not even a question of mine. I was looking at your website and just seeing you have some really great testimonials from people. The assumption I made is that these would be ideal clients for you. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if otherwise, or, maybe your experience has been that you've spoken and you have or have not gained ideal clients from that. But really what was top of mind for me is that you have received some great testimonials about how engaging you are as a speaker. And I'm sure you have some nuggets of wisdom or best practices that others could benefit from.
Yeah. So no, I don't think you find your best consulting clients giving speeches. I think giving talks, it's almost a different client base. The people that are looking to engage an audience.
Interesting. Okay.
Who are looking to hire a consultant. It's just a little bit different intention.
So, well, let's stay there for a moment. This is really interesting. So would you say in your experience that the people who you speak in front of, they're great as speaking clients, but in terms of consulting clients, your best consulting clients have come from referrals or sending out those books?
That's exactly right. Yeah. My best consulting clients come from people who are interested in solving some kind of hairy problem. They believe that I have the ability and the connections and the insights to do that. So people who watch me speak don't necessarily believe that at the end of my speech. They say, wow, great information, great guy, great this, great that. But they might not have enough information once they leave there to know what I can help them do.
So how do you think about both speaking and consulting or sending out book, referrals in terms of where you place your focus? Like, where are you prioritizing your time to get the greatest return? Is it worthwhile for you to be doing both those things? Do they fit together? Or do you feel like you're weighting more of your time and more of your energy into speaking or sending books and consulting and referral generation? What's your mindset and approach to that?
Yeah. Well, you probably know this, Michael. Most consultants would love to be highly paid keynote speakers because you make in 45 minutes what you typically make in a month killing yourself with a client.
Right.
So everyone is trying to jump into that game, right? It's such an overcrowded space right now that I can tell you that everybody that tells you that they're doing well, they're probably bending the truth a little bit because everybody is jumping into it. Actors, actresses, ex-military, ex-politicians, everyone, singers. It's just a new source of income for them. Right. And a lot of people that are looking to put people in seats are looking for celebrity status to drive ticket sales or attendance. So as a consultant, I wouldn't look at speaking and say, well, if I give speeches, this is my way of drawing people in. I wouldn't do that. I would look for opportunities to network with people where they're trying to get information, to learn about how to succeed. It's tough because people's time today is so compressed. So to find some time with people. Now, that said, if you can give free speeches and you can get decision makers to take 45 minutes and sit there and have a cup of coffee and watch you, do it. Because that's a good source of at least giving out your expertise, demonstrating it, handing them a book, handing them a pamphlet, whatever, so that they walk away and maybe call you later. But to get on a stage in front of thousands, look, I've got, 500,000 views on my TED Talk about belief. The phone has never rung based on that. It's just people being entertained for 17 minutes.
Right.
So a CEO who's struggling with how do I grow my business is not sitting at his desk watching TED Talks all day long.
And if they were, that could be the reason why they're not.
That's what it's true.
Yeah. So Tom, we're getting up close to the time here, and I certainly want to respect your time, and I'm very appreciative of you coming on here and sharing your experience. But I don't want to leave people hanging, because the second part, or my original question, was really around what do you do to engage people, whether or not people decide to go the speaking route, whether they just want to be better at giving presentation or interacting with a group of people. What maybe one or two mindsets or approaches or activities or actions would you recommend and that you have found to work best to engage people?
Michael, I can tell you that there's 3 steps to doing this, and they're not easy. And I can't really throw out the answers to each of the steps, but I'll tell you what the steps are.
Let's do it, yeah.
The very first step is engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what that means is you have to figure out how to arouse people's feelings. You have to engage their conscious attention somehow and point them in a direction of value. So you have to understand what will engage and arouse those people's feelings. What value are they looking for? Then you can go out and you can figure out in a creative way, how do I bring those feelings to life?
Yeah.
So now you've got these feelings brought to life in someone, and they say, I think these people can really help move me forward. The second step is you've got to get them interested in what you do. And the way you do that is, number one, you validate their existing beliefs, because anything that signals to them that they don't believe what you believe, they're gone.
Yeah.
Then you feed their hungers for what they're looking for, not you. Mm-hmm. And then you enhance their sense of self, because if somebody's looking at you and they feel bad about themselves because of how you're presenting it, you're out. And then finally, it's belief. And that's how you come alive in their imaginations, and you convey purpose, you allay their skepticism, and you just do that through your actions with them and through others, through referrals, through how you provide value to them. I cannot begin to tell you how many people, big businesses I consult with, that will send me proposals from consultants, and I read them and I say, I don't think these people even thought through what they sent. It's like they don't even understand who the client is. It's just some cookie cutter thing.
Yeah, I mean, so these are terrific points, and I'm glad that we're kind of bringing them to the forefront here for everyone to think about, and I hope to act on. But you're right. I mean, so many consultants out there will even try and use a proposal to win the business, right? They haven't actually taken the time to really understand what the client wants, and to dig deep into all the reasons for it and what it could mean to them, and help them to understand the value and the cost of inaction and all that other good stuff. So you're right. And I was watching another interview, actually listening to a podcast at the gym yesterday, and another person who's given lots of talks was talking about how, in their experience, the most important thing to be effective at speaking is to connect with people, to show them that you understand, like what's going on in their minds. To really, I think the words that he used were, you need to understand your audience. And I think that is something that as consultants and coaches, we all really need to do, right? To have a meaningful conversation, we need to either already understand what's going on in the minds of those people that we want to serve, or we need to be interested enough and committed enough to engage in that conversation, to really ask those questions, and not just to launch into, hey, here's what I do and here's how I can help you and all that kind of stuff. So those are 3 really great kind of topics or points that people should be thinking about. So thank you for sharing those, Tom.
Welcome. Look, it's a dance, Michael. It's a dance. Think of it this way. The marketplace is a dance between interested and interesting.
Yeah.
You've got to be both today. It's a really competitive marketplace. You have to be interested in a way that people say, wow, he understands me. She understands me. They understand me. But you've got to be interesting in a way that draws them in the first place, so that they can say that.
Yeah, definitely. So go and check out Tom's book here, The Business of Belief, and the other books that you've written as well. That goes without saying. But Tom, what book are you reading right now, or what book have you read recently that left a mark on you that you think one that others should read as well?
Yeah, I'm looking at my desk. I've got a stack of books in front of me here because, like I said, I'm working on this deep philosophy of life, of why people don't stretch and become creative and compassionate. And so I've got books stacked up here that I'm reading, mostly philosophy books. From a business book standpoint?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a business book. It just could be any book that you think might help a consultant either in business or in life, or that you think is an important work. This is always a hard one. When people ask me the same question, I have the same response typically, which is looking at the bookshelf and going like, wow, I don't even know where to begin. Sometimes there will be something that I'm reading right now or that stands out, but is there anything at all for you?
If you want to understand how the mind works, and it's a big, thick, deep book, you can go read Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman. And maybe you come out of that with a better understanding of the fact that human beings are not rational creatures. I mean, this is the guy who won a Nobel Prize in economics for basically pioneering behavioral economics. Everybody used to think that people were rational actors, and they're not. So the first step is to try to understand, at least viscerally in your gut, okay, I get it. People are not rational. From there, you can now make steps to move forward with your strategies that now make sense based on how people actually behave. Probably the best book out there to do that. So it's Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Great. Tom, I want to thank you again so much for coming on, sharing a bit of your story here and some of the best practices and wisdom. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. This has been great. This has been my pleasure.
And before we end off here, though, I want to make sure that people can learn more about you and your work. Where's the best place for them to go to do that?
They can either go straight to my website, which is at tomasacker.com. It's tough to spell, so you can get there also through thebusinessofbelief.com.
Fantastic. Tom, thank you again so much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.